Well, good morning. This is Plant Smart Living with Farmer Fred. We're out here at the compost pile across from the front of the house, and my friend Jared here has visited. You know, Jared always says he's come with the house, you know, and so he's been a friend of mine for years. He's kind of like having that son I never had, and so it's always fun having him join us. Well, we're out here at the compost pile this morning, and I just wanted to briefly go over the compost that I use, and then we're going to head down to the garden bed. I have one bed that I prepared, and then another bed that's 4x8 that we're going to prepare for the fall. But anyhow, let's just talk about this compost for a minute. Jared, you can even finish throwing a few more shovelfuls in there. But this is composted leaf mulch. They may have these big piles, and it's certified compost, and so they have to bring the temperature up to a certain degrees for a certain amount of time. So it kills all the weed seeds, you know, and so that's one way you could have a weed-free garden, is to use compost that's been certified, and because it has virtually very few weeds in it. Like if you look at this compost pile, that's been here for like since March. I get early March because the ground's dry. I get 6 yards, and they deliver it, and the bill's usually like $200. So. But there's hardly any weeds growing on it. You know, you have a plant right here, but all in all, if this was a dirt pile in my woods, it would be a blanket of weeds, you know. And so this leaf mulch is really good. You know, once you put it in your garden bed and it rains through the compost, it's kind of like gives it a little drink of liquid tea, like nutrition, you know, nutrients for the plants. And so, you know, let me take a second and talk about these wheelbarrow and this cart. Just a little tip here. One thing I've learned over the years is, you know, you get these wheelbarrows and they have they're pneumatic, you put air in them. Well, it's really a real hassle trying to keep air in them from one season to the next. They're always getting a flat. So let me encourage you, if you ever do want to buy a wheelbarrow in the future, get one with a solid rubber tire. And that's what this one is. It's solid rubber. You know, we have enough things to worry about in this life, and you know, if we don't have to deal with flat tires all the time, that's a great way to get around that. And even this little cart here, it's 2 wheels. There's no air in these tires, solid rubber, and so and it holds a lot. I use this around the garden for when I pick out the weeds, and then you can lift the handle and bump it. So we have these the wheelbarrow and the cart full with compost, and we're going to head down to the garden bed, and we're going to show you how to prepare these garden beds for the fall. So we're thankful that you joined us today. It's a little humid here in Harleysville, but it's a nice day, and we're glad to be here. So let's grab your compost, and we're going to head down here. Going right down the hill here on the road. Following the valley. Good, no problem. Just don't run over my shoes. Alright, you can just put that right there. But before we address this 4x8 planter bed, let's just go over here at this other bed I have here. If you watch some of the earlier videos, you know, let's take a peek under the row cover. You can see I had the broccoli plants in here. Still have this nice big kale, or a Swiss chard. You know, Swiss chard's my sweetheart because it's so tender, and when you cook it, you know, and steam it, and so it's really great over potatoes and rice, because rice and potatoes, that's our fuel that we plant-based eaters use for giving us energy. And so anyhow, I just recently cleaned all the broccoli leaves out of here. You could just the size of the broccoli was amazing. The stalk of one broccoli plant was like the thickness of my wrist, and that's what you should expect if you have a nice healthy plant with good fertile soil. And so I put a couple inches of that compost on top of the soil. That's also going to help keep the weeds down. And then, hey Jared, if you got a second, why don't you fill that container with the alfalfa pellets, That's another thing that I use as a fertilizer, as a 3-1-2 analysis. 3% nitrogen, 1% phosphorus, and like 2% potash. But but this is what we use for the soils as a fertilizer. It'll break down over a period of a couple months. So why don't we take a head up to this garden bed and go through some steps here that I do to prepare the soil. Now I use this is called a scuffle hoe. I use this not only, although I don't get many weeds, but if you do have a garden, you have a lot of weeds, this scuffle hoe works excellent. You can just go along the surface, about 1/2 inch deep, and it cuts the seeds, or the weeds, down, and so you can go around each plant with this. There'll also be a link provided for this, but I would highly recommend this as a garden tool. But I don't only use that to kill weeds. I use it to just till my garden. So I'm just going to add some of these pellets underneath the compost. So then once it rains tonight, it'll start to break down these pellets again and give it a nice balanced, pretty balanced nutrition or nutrients for the plants. So I just want to work this into the soil real good. And most root systems on plants are only 3-4 inches deep, you know, but I just want to work this into the soil a little bit. Make sure it goes down a good 4 inches deep. I don't need a rotiller anymore. I used to have one, but since I use compost, it's wonderful. I don't have to worry about gas engines or anything anymore. Just basically use this scuffle hoe. So that'll give the root system and soil nice and loose. So Jared, why don't we assist me here and let's dump this compost into the beds.
One at a time or both together?
It doesn't matter. It's doing both. I think we want to fill that up too much. That looks good. So we're going to just take the rake and I'm going to spread that out. Now before I do that though, let me show you something else. I have this garden fork here that I use. I've actually adapted it over the years. Put a T-handle here, and I welded on this 1-inch angle iron on the top of the fork, because without it, you know, you really hurt the arches of your feet, and so it's really worked out well. I wish I could patent that, you know. But so anyhow, say you're growing carrots here, since they're root vegetable, you can just get this and work along the soil if you do carrots. Or really any garden bed, you just go along the soil and work it back and forth like that. And that goes down probably a good 10 inches or more. But being that this is mostly compost, it really goes right in nice. And that's really what you want, is a nice, loose, friable soil so the roots can spread out, you know, because the more roots, the more we're able to absorb the nutrients in the soil, resulting in a nice, much healthier plant and everything. So I'm not doing carrots in this bed, but nevertheless, most of it seems to be pretty loose. But if you do carrots, it's a good idea. Or any, depends on your soil. You know, if it's not so loose, then it would be good to just go through your whole garden bed and just wiggle it back and forth, and then you'll have a nice aerated soil for your plant roots. So really all we need to do is break this out. Jared, if you could, go get me about another half container of that. So I put those alfalfa pellets. It's 100% alfalfa. I could put a link below so you can read information on that. I got that from a local feed store, a 50-pound bag. And hopefully in the future I'm going to do a video on making compost tea out of, or alfalfa tea out of those pellets. So it would be a soluble fertilizer. So I'm just simply going to break this out now. This 4x8 bed reminds me of my niece Hillary that was inquiring the other day about having a garden bed at her own home. And so this is what I would recommend for those who want to begin gardening, is to start with a 4x8 raised planter bed the first year, or a little bit bigger if you want, but I always share with people that it's better to start small and build off your successes. And so even with the bed this size, you know, you can grow a couple tomatoes and peppers, maybe some Swiss chard or kale. You know, that's the pick and come again, so you'll have greens the whole summer. And yeah, you could plant a few cucumbers, maybe the bush cucumber. That's what I did here. If you saw my video about little brother and big brother, you know that big brother, and he was in a greenhouse and he really grew strong. Little brother out here, he lasted a couple of months and we got some cucumbers from him. But anyhow, you just want to finish spreading this out a couple inches. But yeah, if you can get some composted leaf mulch. Now I'm not sure if I mentioned this earlier, but I get this from Barnside Compost. Nice people over there, and they deliver it here. I found it's a lot easier for me now to just have it delivered rather than get a trailer or my own truck. And then, so that's pretty much ready. We're preparing this for the fall. Thanks. For the fall season, because I can plant some more broccoli in here, or cauliflower. And so I'll be putting these under the row covers. Keep that cabbage butterfly off of them. So I have some of this sprinkled under the compost, and I'll just put a little bit on top. And then soil microorganisms will break all that down so that plants can use all that nutrition for them to grow. And so I think we've pretty much covered everything here. And so let me encourage you to think about growing your own garden. Again, there's so much money you can save by growing your own vegetables. It's really not science. It's not too difficult. You know, you're not building a rocket ship here. You know, you're putting some compost in, a few plants, keeping them watered, and you're nurturing and caring for them as a mother would its newborn baby. So you need to spend a little bit of time in the beginning, especially getting their feet established, their roots established in the ground. So anyhow, I want to thank you for joining us today. I hope this has been helpful for you. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them in the space below. So until next time, this is Plant Smart Living with Farmer Fred.